Hey, listen up. If you've ever felt that something's not quite right with the world, that there's a hidden truth lurking beneath the surface, then you're in the right place. Today, we're diving deep into a bombshell revelation that's shaking the very foundations of everything you thought you knew. Mel Gibson has exposed that we're living in a simulation. And I'm not talking about your favorite sci-fi movie. This is no BS, raw truth that's been hidden from you for far too long. I used to be that person who had these weird, nagging suspicions about life. I'd catch myself questioning everyday events, wondering if there was more than meets the eye. And then, one day, everything clicked. I discovered evidence, hints, and stories that pointed to a shocking possibility. Our reality might just be a giant, elaborate simulation. And guess what? Mel Gibson, one of Hollywood's most controversial figures, has been speaking about it, loud and clear. He's never been one to follow the rules, and now his journey has taken him to the heart of this mystery. You are meant to see this, because what I'm about to share is so intense, so mind-blowing, that once you get it, you'll never see your life the same way again. So, buckle up. We're about to peel back the layers of the world's most guarded secret, and trust me, you won't want to miss a single word. Mel Gibson's journey. Let's start with the man at the center of this wild ride, Mel Gibson. You know him as the fiery, unapologetic actor and director who's given us unforgettable films like The Passion of the Christ. But there's a side of Gibson that most people have never seen, a side that challenges everything we take for granted. Mel's career hasn't been a smooth ride. He's had his share of ups and downs, controversies that made headlines and forced him to step away from the mainstream. But behind the tabloid drama and public backlash, there's a deeper story. In interviews and off-record chats, Gibson has hinted at a truth that's been kept under wraps by the powers that be. According to him, the fabric of our reality isn't as solid as you might think. In one candid moment, he suggested that our entire world, everything you see, touch, and feel, is nothing more than an elaborate simulation. Now, I know that sounds crazy, but think about it. Every time you've had a déjà vu moment, every time you've caught a glitch in what seems like the normal flow of life, maybe it wasn't just your imagination. Mel Gibson has been vocal about these experiences. He talks about how his own career and life took a nosedive right when he started questioning the system. It wasn't just Hollywood turning its back on him, it was a cosmic response, as if reality itself was pushing back against someone daring to see through the illusion. Gibson isn't here to sugarcoat anything. He's raw, unfiltered, and he's got a point to prove. His experiences, his outbursts, even his career's roller coaster, all seem to be tied to this one idea, that there's a hidden code behind our everyday lives. And once you start noticing it, there's no going back. All right, so let's break this down in simple terms. The simulation hypothesis is the idea that everything around us, our lives, our world, even the universe, is actually a highly advanced computer simulation. Think about it like this. You've played video games, right? When you're in a game, you're in a world that feels real until the screen glitches or you step outside the game. Now, what if our reality was just a giant cosmic video game? No joke. This isn't some new idea invented overnight. Philosophers and thinkers have been toying with the notion of an illusionary reality for centuries. Remember Plato's allegory of the cave? In that story, prisoners see shadows on a wall and believe them to be the only reality. Only when one escapes does he learn that there's an entire world beyond those shadows. Fast forward to modern times, and you've got philosophers like Nick Bostrom arguing that if advanced civilizations can create realistic simulations, then there's a pretty good chance we're living in one. And it doesn't stop there. Even some of today's top scientists and tech moguls like Elon Musk have pointed out that the odds of our universe being the one base reality are incredibly slim. With the pace of technological advances, from clunky video games of the 80s to ultra-realistic virtual worlds today, It's not hard to imagine a future where simulations are indistinguishable from real life. So if we're in a simulation, what does that mean for you and me? It means that everything we experience, from the laws of physics to the quirks of our daily lives, might be part of a grand design, a program run by someone or something beyond our understanding. And here's the kicker. Once you start to understand that, you realize you have the power to question, to rebel, and even to change the system. Let's dig deep into the clues that hint our world might not be as real as you think. It sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi flick, but stick with me. There's a growing body of evidence, a mix of science, personal experiences, and even a few uncanny coincidences that suggest our reality might actually be a massive, sophisticated simulation. First off, think about the little glitches you've experienced in your everyday life. You know the ones I'm talking about. Those moments when you suddenly feel like you've already lived through a situation before, when time seems to loop or stutter for a split second. Maybe you were walking down a busy street and, out of nowhere, everything felt eerily repetitive. It might have been a feeling of déjà vu so strong it made you pause and wonder if you'd seen that exact moment before. While some scientists explain these experiences as quirks of the brain, neurological hiccups that trigger a sense of familiarity, it's hard not to wonder if these are actually glitches in the system. Just like in a computer game where a bug might cause a character to freeze or repeat an action, these brief interruptions could be the universe's way of showing us that there's a deeper code at work behind the scenes. Now, let's get a little more technical. One of the strongest pieces of evidence comes from modern physics, specifically quantum mechanics. In the quantum realm, particles behave in ways that defy our everyday logic. They don't seem to have a set position until we observe them, and their state can exist in multiple possibilities at once, until that observation collapses the wave function into one reality. It's almost as if the universe is rendering details only when you look at them, much like a video game that only loads the scenery that's in your immediate field of view to save on processing power. This phenomenon, sometimes called quantum indeterminacy, is one of the many hints that our reality might be less solid and more like an elaborate simulation that only updates when needed. Speaking of video games, think about the leaps in technology we've seen over the past few decades. We went from the simple, pixelated worlds of the 80s to today's immersive virtual reality environments that can fool your senses completely. Modern VR games create whole universes that, to the player, feel incredibly real, even though you know it's just a digital construct. Now, if technology can create such realistic virtual worlds, it's not such a stretch to imagine that our own universe might be an ultra-advanced simulation designed by beings with technology far beyond our own. When tech giants like Elon Musk publicly entertain the idea that we might be living in a simulation, it forces us to take a closer look. Musk has even pointed out that if you calculate the odds based on the rapid progress of computing power, it seems statistically probable that a future civilization could run thousands or even millions of simulated realities. And we might just be one of them. But it's not only the hard science and digital analogies that point us in this direction. Countless personal stories and anecdotes add fuel to the fire. People from all walks of life have reported bizarre experiences that simply can't be easily explained away. There are accounts of complete reality shifts where someone's day suddenly turns into an entirely different scenario without any apparent reason. For instance, a person might be driving home on a familiar route when, in a blink, everything changes. A street vanishes, a building appears that wasn't there before, or a stranger seems to know them in a way that defies logic. These aren't isolated incidents. They're part of a growing number of reports from people who say they've caught glimpses of the matrix behind everyday life. Then there's the intriguing nature of mathematical constants that govern our universe. Take the Planck length, for example, the smallest measurable unit of space. No matter how much you zoom in on an object, you hit this limit. much like the pixels on a digital screen. It's as if reality is pixelated at its most fundamental level. Similarly, the speed of light can be seen as a sort of processing speed limit for the universe. These constants, rather than being arbitrary, might actually be built-in parameters of a programmed system. It's a compelling idea that the very laws of physics are more like lines of code, set up to ensure the simulation runs smoothly. Of course, the notion that our universe might be digital is supported by more than just physics and personal accounts. Look at the work of philosophers and thinkers who have long pondered the nature of reality. Plato's allegory of the cave, for example, describes prisoners who mistake shadows on a wall for the entirety of existence. Only when one prisoner escapes does he realize that there's a whole world outside the cave, a world of true forms. Modern simulation theory echoes that sentiment. We might be mistaking an artificial construct for genuine reality, all while something far more complex lurks beneath the surface. Nick Bostrom, a philosopher at Oxford, famously argued that if any advanced civilization were capable of running realistic simulations of their ancestors, then the number of simulated realities would vastly outnumber the one base reality. In other words, statistically speaking, it's more likely that we're living in a simulation than in the real original universe. But let's not stop with abstract theory. Let's talk about the undeniable parallels between our experiences and the behavior of digital systems. Ever notice how sometimes your phone or computer seems to freeze or lag for a moment, then suddenly everything snaps back into place? Imagine if the same thing were happening on a cosmic scale. Every time you experience a moment of intense déjà vu or feel that the world is glitching for a brief second, it might be the universe's equivalent of a software hiccup. It's as if the underlying code momentarily stumbles, and we get a fleeting glimpse of the digital framework holding everything together. Now you might be thinking, that all sounds pretty out there, but where's the solid proof? And I get it. Hard evidence in this area is elusive because the very nature of a simulation is to hide its imperfections. However, some experiments in quantum physics have produced results that are eerily consistent with the idea of a digital universe. Researchers have observed phenomena where particles behave as if they're part of a larger algorithm, only activating their properties when observed, which could be interpreted as the system only computing what's necessary at that moment. Such observations have led some scientists to suggest that our reality might be a kind of lazy-loaded simulation, conserving energy by only fully rendering details when required. There's also a fascinating connection between these scientific observations and the experiences of people who claim to have undergone profound shifts in their consciousness. Many individuals who've practiced meditation, mindfulness, or other forms of inner exploration report that reality itself seems to bend around them. They describe moments when the world appears to slow down, when their thoughts seem to influence the environment, or when they experience a sense of oneness with everything around them. These subjective experiences, while difficult to quantify scientifically, are remarkably similar to what you'd expect if reality were responsive to the input of a conscious observer, as if the simulation adjusts in real time to our mental states. And then there's Mel Gibson. Now, if you're still skeptical, consider his own words and experiences. Gibson isn't one to mince words or follow the mainstream narrative. In candid interviews and off-record conversations, he's hinted at witnessing phenomena that defy conventional explanation. He's talked about how his career took a dramatic turn when he began questioning the very nature of reality, suggesting that there were moments when he felt the universe itself was pushing back against him for daring to look behind the curtain. When you line up these personal experiences with the scientific clues and everyday glitches we've talked about, it creates a mosaic of evidence that challenges the idea that our reality is completely organic and unplanned. Now let's expand on some of these clues in even more detail. Imagine for a moment the sheer improbability of the universe as we know it. The fundamental constants of nature, the strengths of the forces, the masses of subatomic particles, the rate of cosmic expansion, all seem to be finely tuned to support life. Some scientists call this the fine-tuning problem, and it's one of the most baffling mysteries in physics. One explanation for this fine-tuning is that there are countless universes, each with different settings, and we just happen to be in the one that works. But if you think about it from a simulation standpoint, it might be that these constants were intentionally set by the creators of the simulation to achieve a specific outcome. Instead of a random, naturally occurring universe, we might be looking at a designed system with parameters that can be adjusted, or at least they were set deliberately by whoever programmed it. Another piece of the puzzle comes from the field of cosmology. The observable universe is vast, yet it appears to be remarkably uniform when you look at it on the largest scales. This homogeneity could be interpreted as evidence of an underlying program that enforces consistency across the board. In a truly organic, chaotic universe, you might expect far more randomness and disorder. But a simulation, by its very nature, runs on a set of predefined rules that keep everything in line, creating a smooth, predictable experience for its inhabitants. Let's also talk about the notion of information in physics. In recent decades, scientists have come to view the universe as being fundamentally composed of information. The famous physicist John Archibald Wheeler even summed it up with the phrase, "it from bit." The idea that every particle, every force, and every bit of energy is fundamentally a piece of information. This concept dovetails neatly with simulation theory. If the universe is made up of information, then it isn't so different from a computer, which also processes information in the form of bits and bytes. This perspective not only supports the idea that our reality might be digital in nature, but it also opens up the possibility that the code of the universe could, in principle, be hacked, altered, or understood at a fundamental level. Of course, one of the most compelling and perhaps unsettling aspects of all this evidence is that it points to a reality that is not as immutable as we once thought. If our world is indeed a simulation, then it might be possible to interact with, or even change, its underlying code. Imagine that your thoughts and actions aren't just passive responses to a fixed set of rules, but are actually inputs that can alter the behavior of the entire system. This idea isn't just a philosophical musing, it's supported by anecdotal evidence from those who claim to have experienced reality shifts. People who practice deep meditation, or those who have had near-death experiences, often describe moments when the world around them transformed in response to their inner state. While mainstream science tends to brush these off as subjective experiences, they could very well be glimpses into the malleable nature of a simulated reality. Let's not forget the role of technology in all this. Over the past few decades, our ability to create virtual worlds has grown exponentially. Video games and virtual reality environments are becoming increasingly realistic, blurring the line between the digital and the physical. When you put on a VR headset, you enter a world that is entirely computer-generated, yet your brain reacts to it as if it were real. This isn't just cool technology. It's a demonstration of how powerful simulated environments can be in shaping our perceptions. And if we can create such convincing virtual worlds, then it stands to reason that a higher form of simulation, run by unknown forces or advanced beings, could be responsible for the universe we live in. Now, I'm not saying that every glitch, every uncanny coincidence, is definitive proof that we're living in a simulation. But when you add up all the clues, the peculiar behavior of quantum particles, the fine-tuning of the universe, the digital parallels in our technology, and the personal experiences of people from all over the world, a picture starts to emerge. It's a picture of a reality that is not fixed and immutable, but one that might be the result of an intricate, programmed design. Take, for instance, the phenomenon of synchronicity, meaningful coincidences that seem too perfectly timed to be mere chance. Have you ever thought of a friend you haven't seen in years, only to have them call you out of the blue? Or have you ever noticed that certain numbers keep showing up, like 1111 on a clock day after day? These aren't just random events. They're hints that the universe might be sending you signals, a sort of backdoor communication from the simulation itself. While skeptics might dismiss these as confirmation biases or mere chance, the frequency and specificity of these occurrences are hard to ignore. They add up to a compelling body of evidence that suggests our experiences are being subtly guided by an underlying program. Even more fascinating is how these clues seem to converge with our own inner experiences. Many people who claim to have woken up to the true nature of reality describe a moment of clarity, a sudden realization that everything they believed about the world was, in fact, a construct. They talk about feeling like a character in a movie who has finally read the script and discovered that the director has been manipulating their every move. That moment of awakening, that profound shift in consciousness, aligns perfectly with the idea that our reality is programmable and therefore subject to change when you alter your internal code. When you start piecing together all these different strands of evidence, from the behavior of subatomic particles to the modern marvels of virtual reality, from ancient philosophical musings to the personal revelations of people like Mel Gibson, a startling picture emerges. It's a picture that challenges everything you thought you knew about existence. Instead of a random, chaotic universe governed by immutable laws, we might be looking at a highly organized, information-driven system, a simulation run by forces or entities that are beyond our current understanding. And here's the kicker. If this is true, then the implications for our lives are enormous. It means that the reality we experience isn't set in stone. It's a dynamic, malleable construct that we can, in theory, interact with, question, and even change. It means that the limits we perceive might just be the boundaries of the code, boundaries that can be rewritten if we dare to challenge them. So when you take a step back and look at the bigger picture, all these pieces of evidence, those everyday glitches, the puzzling behavior of quantum particles, the uncanny coincidences, and the revolutionary ideas of scientists and philosophers alike, begin to weave together into a tapestry that suggests our reality is more like a sophisticated simulation than a naturally occurring phenomenon. Each clue, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, adds weight to the theory that we're all part of an elaborate digital construct. In the end, whether you fully believe in simulation theory or not, the evidence is compelling enough to make you question the nature of your reality. It invites you to challenge the status quo, to look beyond the surface of everyday life, and to consider that what you've always taken for granted might just be a carefully crafted illusion. And if there's one thing we can learn from all this, it's that questioning is the first step toward truly understanding the world around us. Every glitch, every synchronistic event, every inexplicable moment becomes a piece of the puzzle, a reminder that the code behind our existence might be more malleable and more complex than we ever imagined. And as you start to recognize these patterns in your own life, you realize that the power to change your reality might be right at your fingertips. The evidence is all around us, waiting to be uncovered by those brave enough to look beyond the surface. So open your eyes, question everything, and pay attention to the clues that keep showing up. They're not just random anomalies, they might be the breadcrumbs leading you to a deeper truth. And remember, once you start seeing the world as a grand simulation, there's no going back to the way things were. The code is out there, and it's time to start reading between the lines. Who's behind the simulation? The hidden controllers. All right, let's dive into one of the most mind-blowing parts of this theory. If we're all living in a simulation, then who or what is running the show? This isn't just idle speculation. There are countless clues, theories, and wild stories out there that hint at hidden controllers working behind the scenes. And while we might never have definitive answers, it's worth exploring every angle to see who might be holding the reins of our reality. Imagine for a moment that our universe isn't an organic accident, but a designed construct? Who would have the power to create something so vast and complex? One of the leading ideas is that our simulation is run by advanced artificial intelligences or even future civilizations. Picture a society so far ahead of us that they've mastered technology to the point where creating whole simulated worlds is as easy as launching a new video game. In this scenario, our entire existence might just be a byproduct of their curiosity, a sort of cosmic laboratory where they run experiments on everything from social behavior to the evolution of life. Some proponents argue that if an advanced civilization can build such detailed simulations, they would likely create many of them. Think about it. If you can simulate one universe, why not simulate 100, 1,000, or even millions? And statistically speaking, if that were the case, then the chances of us being in the original base reality are astronomically low. Instead, we're more likely inhabitants of one of these countless simulated universes. This idea has been popularized by thinkers like Nick Bostrom, who laid out the simulation argument with a straightforward logic that makes you question everything you thought you knew. But let's push the envelope even further. Beyond future civilizations and advanced AI, there are theories that point to a more sinister or secretive group behind the simulation, namely, global elites and shadow organizations that manipulate society on a massive scale. According to these ideas, the simulation isn't just a scientific or technological experiment, it's also a tool of control. Some conspiracy theorists believe that powerful groups, ranging from secret societies to government agencies, have tapped into this simulated framework to shape public opinion, enforce social norms, and maintain their grip on power. Think about it. Every major institution in our society, from the government to big corporations, thrives on control and order. If there were a way to program human behavior on a grand scale, wouldn't these groups jump at the chance? By controlling the simulation, they could essentially write the rules of society, deciding who gets to succeed, who gets left behind, and how every aspect of our lives unfolds. This idea isn't entirely new. Throughout history, there have been whispers about secret cabals, hidden organizations that steer world events behind the scenes. Whether it's the Illuminati, the Freemasons, or some other cryptic collective, these theories suggest that the true power isn't in elected officials or CEOs, but in those who quietly shape the fabric of our reality from the shadows. Then there's the role of technology and media, specifically Hollywood, in all of this. For decades, movies and television have been our primary means of storytelling. But what if these stories aren't just entertainment? What if they're subtle lessons on how the simulation operates? Many films, from The Matrix to Inception, explore the idea that our reality is constructed, that there's a hidden code running everything. Some theorists even argue that these movies are more than fictional tales. They're hints dropped by insiders who know more than they let on. In this light, Hollywood becomes not just a production company, but a training ground for our minds, conditioning us to accept a reality that's been carefully programmed. Mel Gibson, for example, has been a controversial figure partly because he's been vocal about these very ideas. When he started talking about the simulation and the hidden forces behind our reality, he wasn't merely sharing a quirky personal theory. His statements struck a nerve because they challenged the dominant narrative that most people have been fed. His career, his fall from grace, and his subsequent crusade against the status quo all seem to point to a man who dared to peek behind the curtain and paid a heavy price for it. But let's get back to the central question. Who exactly could be behind this simulation? One possibility is that the controllers are entities that exist on a level far beyond our current understanding. They might be non-human intelligences, not bound by the physical limitations we know. In this view, our simulation could be the product of beings whose form of consciousness and technology are so advanced that our entire way of life is as insignificant to them as a grain of sand is to us. These entities might not even be malevolent. they could simply be indifferent observers running a complex experiment. Yet, their indifference might be exactly what makes the system so ruthless. Without empathy, or a moral compass that aligns with ours, they wouldn't hesitate to let the simulation run its course, even if it means that some of us suffer along the way. On the other hand, if we lean towards the idea of human or near-human controllers, we enter the realm of secret societies and deep-state organizations. These theories often suggest that certain influential figures have discovered the code of our reality and now use that knowledge to control everything from economic markets to social trends. There are accounts and whistleblower stories that hint at governments investing in research that could alter human consciousness, manipulating digital information in ways that make it almost impossible to break free from the pre-written script. Whether it's through social media algorithms, the constant barrage of targeted ads, or even the way news is curated and presented, every digital interaction could be a tiny piece of a larger puzzle, designed to keep us locked in our predetermined roles. This idea gains some traction when you consider the sheer scale of data being processed every day. Big tech companies collect and analyze information on billions of people. If the simulation is digital, then it's not a giant leap to imagine that these companies have found ways to interact with its underlying code. They might be unwittingly, or perhaps knowingly, feeding data into the system, reinforcing certain behaviors and suppressing others. And if a handful of elite insiders have managed to crack this code, they could very well be shaping our collective future without most of us even realizing it. There's also an intriguing overlap between these two lines of thought, the possibility that advanced civilizations and secret organizations are, in fact, part of the same continuum. Maybe the hidden controllers aren't an entirely separate group, but are the evolved successors of our own species, or a fusion of human and artificial intelligence that has transcended our current limitations. In such a scenario, the simulation might be a way for these post-human entities to preserve, experiment with, or even control the evolution of consciousness. They might have created the simulation as a sandbox for testing new ideas, technologies, and social structures. And if that's the case, then our entire history, with all its struggles and triumphs, could be seen as part of a grand experiment orchestrated by beings that once looked just like us, but now wield unimaginable power. The notion of hidden controllers also ties in with one of the most disturbing aspects of simulation theory, the idea that free will might be an illusion. If our actions, thoughts, and emotions are all part of a pre-written code, then who or what determines the limits of our choices? Some argue that the simulation is designed to keep us complacent, to ensure that we follow a script that benefits those in power. In this view, every rebellion, every attempt to break free from conventional norms might be anticipated and even manipulated by the controllers. They could be running a self-correcting system that rewards conformity while punishing deviation. This is where the concept of glitches and unexpected events becomes critical. These moments might be the system's way of testing our resolve, seeing if we can step out of line or if we'll just revert to the programmed path. Consider the countless whistleblower accounts from insiders in various industries, people who claim to have seen the inner workings of systems so vast and complex that they defy belief. While many of these stories are met with skepticism, they share common themes: secret meetings, hidden technologies, and an overarching desire to keep the truth under wraps. Whether these accounts are entirely true or exaggerated for dramatic effect, they add another layer to the mystery. They hint at a world where the controllers have more than just political or corporate power. They have access to technology and knowledge that allow them to manipulate the very fabric of our existence. Of course, with all these theories, it's important to remember that we're venturing into a realm where hard evidence is scarce and speculation runs rampant. But that doesn't mean the ideas aren't worth exploring. After all, some of the greatest discoveries in history began as wild, out-there ideas that were dismissed as mere fantasy, until new evidence came along to support them. The possibility that we're living in a simulation run by hidden controllers whose identities and motives remain shrouded in mystery, challenges everything we know about reality. It forces us to ask uncomfortable questions. Who gets to decide what's real? Who controls the flow of information? And most importantly, what can we do to reclaim our freedom if everything is pre-written? One of the most compelling aspects of this theory is how it resonates with our everyday experiences. Every time you catch a strange coincidence or feel like something isn't quite right, it could be a sign that the simulation is being subtly tweaked. Think about those moments when the world seems to slow down, when you feel a sudden, inexplicable surge of awareness, or when you experience a powerful sense of déjà vu. These aren't just random neurological events. They might be cracks in the facade, glimpses of the underlying code that governs our lives. And what about those times when you try to break free from routine? When you take a risk, step out of your comfort zone, or decide to challenge the status quo? More often than not, you might face inexplicable resistance. Relationships might falter, opportunities vanish, or you're met with a wave of unexpected obstacles. This isn't necessarily bad luck. It could be the simulation's built-in defense mechanism, designed to keep you from straying too far from your preordained path. The hidden controllers, whoever they are, want to maintain order. They want to ensure that the system remains stable and that any deviation from the norm is corrected as quickly as possible. Now, if we consider the possibility that the controllers are advanced intelligences or post-human entities, their motivations might be entirely different from what we're used to. They might not be driven by a desire for power or control in the traditional sense. Instead, they could see the simulation as a way to explore the potential of consciousness, to experiment with different ways of being, and even to solve problems that we haven't yet dreamed of tackling. In this scenario, our lives and our struggles might be seen as part of a grand educational experiment, a way for these beings to learn about the human condition and perhaps one day to help us evolve beyond our current limitations. Yet, whether the hidden controllers are indifferent observers, benevolent mentors, or manipulative overlords, one thing is clear. The idea that our reality is being orchestrated by unseen forces is both exhilarating and terrifying. It suggests that everything you've ever experienced, from the mundane to the miraculous, could be part of a larger narrative, a cosmic script written by entities whose motives are as mysterious as they are powerful. So, what do we do with all this information? For starters, we have to keep questioning. Theories about hidden controllers are meant to shake us out of complacency, to push us to look beyond the surface of everyday life, and to seek out the deeper truth. Whether or not we ever find concrete proof of these controllers' identities or their methods, the very act of questioning challenges the status quo. It empowers us to see that the world isn't set in stone, that it might be, in fact, something that can be influenced, reprogrammed, or even rewritten. And here's another fascinating angle. If the simulation is real and these controllers are actively managing it, then our collective awareness could be a powerful tool. Every time we question our reality, every moment we challenge the narrative, we chip away at the illusion. It might be that the simulation is designed to adapt to the collective energy of its inhabitants. In that case, the more people who awaken to the truth, the harder it becomes for the controllers to maintain their grip. It becomes a battle of wills, a struggle between imposed order and organic evolution. There are also hints that the controllers might be using technology to shape our perceptions without us even realizing it. Consider how our digital lives have become intertwined with our physical existence. Social media platforms, streaming services, and even our smartphones all collect vast amounts of data about us, subtly influencing what we see, how we think, and how we behave. This isn't just about targeted ads or content recommendations. Many believe it's part of a larger system of control designed to keep us in line. By feeding us carefully curated information, the hidden controllers might be manipulating our collective consciousness, ensuring that the majority of us stay comfortable with the narrative that's been provided. It's also worth considering the possibility that these hidden controllers have infiltrated even our educational and cultural institutions. The way we learn, the way history is taught, and even the stories we hear from our childhoods could be designed to prepare us for life in a controlled environment. From fairy tales to blockbuster movies, many narratives are crafted to reinforce certain values and behaviors. While these stories can be uplifting and entertaining, they also serve to normalize a particular worldview, one that might ultimately be a part of the simulation's programming. If our minds are constantly bombarded with messages about conformity, obedience, and the importance of playing your part, then it's no wonder that the system remains robust and unchallenged. All of this might sound overwhelming, maybe even a little paranoid. But here's the kicker. The very act of exploring these ideas is a form of liberation. Whether or not there is a grand design behind our reality, the questions we ask force us to look deeper and to realize that we're not just passive bystanders. Every time you question the narrative, every time you notice a glitch or challenge a preconceived notion, you're taking a stand. You're proving that the simulation isn't unchangeable, that it can be examined, tested, and even altered. So as you reflect on all these possibilities, from advanced AI and future civilizations to shadow governments and media manipulation, ask yourself, what resonates with you? Who do you think is really behind the simulation? Is it an indifferent, cosmic experiment run by beings far beyond our understanding? Or is it a deliberate, carefully orchestrated effort by hidden powers to control and shape our destiny? There's no one right answer, and perhaps that's the point. The mystery itself is a call to keep seeking, to never settle for what appears to be normal. In the end, whether the hidden controllers are benevolent, indifferent, or downright malevolent, knowing that there might be forces out there working behind the scenes is a powerful realization. It reminds us that our world might not be as fixed as it seems, that we might have more power than we think, and that every choice we make could have far-reaching consequences. So keep your eyes open, question everything, and never be afraid to challenge the status quo. Because the moment you do, you might just start to see the threads of the simulation, and with them, the possibility of rewriting your own reality. Remember, this isn't about inciting fear or pushing wild conspiracy theories without basis. It's about encouraging you to think for yourself, to break out of the programmed mold, and to understand that the world you know is only one version of reality. The hidden controllers, whether they're advanced intelligences, secret cabals, or something else entirely, might be shaping the environment we live in, but that doesn't mean you have to be a puppet on a string. Every question you ask, every bit of skepticism you show, is a step toward true freedom. The power to change the narrative lies in your hands, in your willingness to see past the surface and to understand that the code of our reality might be more flexible and more hackable than we ever imagined. And as you continue to explore these ideas, remember that you're not alone. There are countless others out there who are questioning, who are seeking the truth behind the veil, and who believe that our future can be shaped by our collective awakening. So whether you lean toward the idea of advanced civilizations, shadow governments, or a blend of both as the hidden controllers behind our simulation, one thing is clear. The world is far more mysterious and malleable than it appears. And the more we learn, the more we can empower ourselves to take control of our destiny. In closing, consider this. If the hidden controllers are indeed behind the simulation, their greatest strength lies in their secrecy. They thrive on our ignorance, on the routine acceptance of a world that seems too ordinary to question. But the moment we start to unravel the threads, by noticing the glitches, by challenging the narratives, by simply being aware, we begin to chip away at their control. And that, in itself, is a revolutionary act. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and remember, every small act of defiance is a step toward a reality that you truly control. The mystery of who's behind the simulation isn't meant to paralyze you with fear. It's meant to inspire you to break free, to rewrite the rules, and to ultimately reclaim the power that's always been yours. Now let's talk about Hollywood. You might think of it as just the land of movies, glitz, and glamour, but there's a darker side to it, a side that's all about controlling what we think and how we see the world. Movies aren't just stories. They're powerful tools that shape our perceptions of reality. Think about your favorite films. Chances are, they've taught you how a hero should act, how romance should feel, and even how conflicts should be resolved. And while that might seem harmless, it's actually a form of programming. Hollywood has been crafting narratives that mirror the simulation theory for decades, conditioning us to accept a version of reality that's been carefully constructed. Mel Gibson is no stranger to this. His films, especially something as impactful as The Passion of the Christ, are more than just entertainment. They're messages. They force you to confront deep questions about identity, belief, and even the nature of reality itself. After that film, Gibson wasn't the same. His career took a hit, and suddenly he wasn't the beloved star anymore. He was the rebel, the one who dared to challenge the status quo. And that's exactly what happens when you start questioning the system. The more you see through the facade, the more the world around you starts to crumble. Hollywood's role in this isn't accidental. The same techniques used in film, dramatic music, strategic camera angles, perfectly timed cuts, are also used to create emotional responses and shape our thoughts. They're like the code of a simulation, designed to elicit specific reactions. And when you start noticing these patterns, you realize that the movies you watch aren't just stories. They're part of a larger narrative that's been running behind the scenes for a long time. There's a theory that Hollywood itself is a simulation factory, churning out narratives that keep us locked into the system. Every blockbuster, every TV show, every viral meme is a piece of the puzzle. They create archetypes, set expectations, and build a shared vision of what reality should look like. And when someone like Mel Gibson steps in and challenges that vision, the system pushes back hard. It's like trying to change the code of a program that's been running for generations. It won't let go without a fight. Okay, let's get a bit geeky for a moment. How does this simulation actually work? Imagine that everything around you, from the trees in the park to the stars in the sky, is built on a digital framework. Every law of physics, every interaction between particles, is like a line of code in a massive program. Scientists have discovered that at the tiniest levels, our universe behaves in ways that are eerily similar to computer algorithms. For instance, quantum mechanics shows us that particles don't have definite properties until they're observed. It's as if the system only renders the details when you look at them, just like a video game that only loads what the player sees. This phenomenon isn't just a quirky aspect of nature. It could be the very signature of a programmed reality. Then there's the idea that the universe has a built-in resolution. Think of it like pixels on a screen. The Planck length, which is the smallest measurable unit in the universe, might be the pixel size of reality. No matter how much you zoom in, you can't break that limit. Much like how you can't get a picture to be smoother than the resolution allows. It's a strong hint that our world isn't continuously smooth but is composed of tiny, discrete units, bits of data, that form the code of our reality. Now, if our universe is a simulation, then everything we experience is the output of a colossal program. The rules we live by, the laws of physics, the flow of time, even gravity, could all be part of the software that runs our world. And here's the kicker. Just like any software, it can have bugs and glitches. Those moments of déjà vu, the strange coincidences, even the inexplicable moments where time seems to stand still, might just be the system's errors. Glitches in the matrix, if you will. What's even more mind-blowing is the role of consciousness in all this. Some theories suggest that our thoughts and beliefs can actually interact with the simulation. Your mind might be like a remote control, capable of tweaking the code and changing the outcomes of events. It's not just about passively living in a program. You might have the power to reprogram parts of it. That's why people who've had profound transformative experiences often describe reality as bending around them, as if the universe was adapting to their new perspective. Here's where things get really personal. If we're all living in a simulation, then your identity, who you believe you are, plays a massive role in how that simulation shapes your reality. Imagine that your mind is like the interface of a computer. The program you're running isn't fixed. It reacts to your beliefs, your emotions, your actions. Mel Gibson's own story is a testament to this idea. When he dared to step out of the role that society had scripted for him, the world around him started to crumble. People no longer saw him as just another actor. They saw him as a symbol, as someone who challenged the very code of the system. And that's the point. When you change your identity, the program has no choice but to update itself. But here's the catch. It's not an easy process. The old code, your past identity, fights back hard, causing chaos and resistance. Changing who you are is like rebooting your personal operating system. You've got to shut down the old programs, clear out the junk files, and install a new version of yourself. And during that process, everything around you might seem to fall apart. Relationships shift, opportunities vanish, and chaos ensues. It's the system's way of testing whether you're really serious about the transformation. If you can hold on to your new identity despite the turbulence, then the simulation has no choice but to update and reflect your new reality. This isn't just theoretical mumbo-jumbo. It's something that people have experienced time and time again. Think about the moments when you've tried to break out of your comfort zone, when you've dared to dream bigger or act differently. Chances are you encountered resistance, a series of setbacks that almost forced you back into your old habits. That's the simulation pushing back, trying to keep you locked in a predetermined role. But here's the empowering truth. Once you truly embrace the idea that you can reprogram your reality, you start to see that the only limits that exist are the ones you've accepted. Your beliefs, your habits, your fears, they're all part of the simulation's code. And when you decide to change them, you start rewriting the rules. You become the hacker of your own destiny, capable of breaking free from the script that's been handed to you. So, you're starting to see the cracks in the facade. You're wondering how to break free from the simulation and start living on your own terms. The awakening process isn't a magic pill. It's a journey. And yes, it's a tough ride, but trust me, it's worth every moment. First, you've got to wake up. That means recognizing the signs that you're living in a constructed reality. Pay attention to those moments when everything feels too perfect, or when something inexplicable happens that shakes you to your core. These are the glitches that signal the truth. Once you start noticing them, you can't unsee what's really going on. Next, it's time to challenge everything. Question the norms, the routines, the beliefs that have been drilled into you since childhood. Ask yourself, why do I do what I do? Who's really in control? It might be uncomfortable at first, but discomfort is a sign of growth. It means you're stepping out of the programmed script and testing the boundaries of the system. Then you need practical tools. And no, this isn't just about reading books or watching documentaries. It's about taking real action. Meditation, mindfulness, and conscious reprogramming are key. Train your mind to observe its own thoughts without judgment. Write down your recurring patterns and ask yourself if they're really serving you. The goal is to rewire your brain until you can control your reactions, your habits, and ultimately your reality. Join forces with others who are on the same path. When you connect with like-minded individuals, you realize you're not alone. There are communities of people who've seen the glitches, who know that the simulation is real, and who are actively working to break free. Share your experiences, swap strategies, and build a support network that reinforces your new reality. Collective awakening isn't just a buzzword. It's a powerful force that can challenge the very foundations of the system. And finally, embrace the chaos. Understand that every setback, every moment of confusion, is just part of the process. The simulation resists change. It's designed to keep you in your old, comfortable patterns. But as you persist, you'll start to see the chaos settle into a new order. That's when you know you've truly reprogrammed your identity. Now let's not sugarcoat things. Waking up and seeing the truth comes at a price. The moment you start questioning everything, life isn't going to be the same. You might lose old friends, face ridicule, or even see opportunities vanish right before your eyes. This is the system's way of punishing you for stepping out of line. Mel Gibson's own life is a perfect example. The more he revealed about the hidden nature of our reality, the more the world around him started to collapse. His career, his status, everything was shaken up because he dared to challenge the scripted narrative. And if you're going to walk this path, you need to be ready for that kind of backlash. It's not just about external consequences. Internally, you'll have to deal with a profound shift. The comfort of ignorance might feel like a warm blanket, and ripping it away can be painful. You'll confront fears, doubts, and deep-seated beliefs that have defined you for years. It's like pulling up old files from your brain and deleting them. There's a sense of loss, but also a chance to build something entirely new. The cost of awakening is high, but remember this: the price of staying asleep is even higher. Living in a comfortable lie might feel safe, but it keeps you trapped in a cycle of mediocrity and unfulfilled potential. Every moment you choose ignorance, you're giving up a piece of yourself, your true power, your ability to shape your own destiny. So if you're ready to pay that price, if you're prepared for the sacrifices that come with real freedom, then you're on the right path. Embrace the struggle, learn from the setbacks, and remember that every challenge is a stepping stone toward a deeper understanding of who you are. All right, this is where it all comes together. You've seen the evidence, you've heard the story, and now it's time to act. Will you continue to be a passive character in a pre-written script, or are you ready to rewrite your own code? Right now, you have a choice. You can stay locked into the simulation, accepting the roles, routines, and limitations that have been imposed on you, or you can rise up, challenge the status quo, and take control of your reality. It's time to stop waiting for permission or validation from a system that doesn't care about your potential. Here's what you need to do. Start small. Notice the glitches in your day, those moments that feel off, that hint at something more. Journal them, share them with others who get it, and begin to question everything. Reprogram your habits, your beliefs, and your actions. Every time you choose to act from a place of conscious awareness, you're sending a message to the simulation. I'm not just a background character, I'm the one rewriting the script. Don't let fear or doubt hold you back. The system is built on keeping you in line, but it's up to you to break those chains. You have the power to change your life, to influence your surroundings, and to join a community of awakened individuals who are making a difference. It starts with one small step, a decision to no longer accept the status quo. So what are you going to do? Will you sit back and let the simulation control your life? Or will you stand up and take back your reality? The truth has been exposed, and there's no going back. It's time to reclaim your power. Drop a comment, share your experiences, and join the movement. Your new reality is waiting. Grab it with both hands and never look back. We've reached the end of this journey, but believe me, it's only the beginning. Everything we've talked about today, the evidence, the theories, the personal transformation, is real. The deeper you dig, the harder it becomes to go back to the old way of thinking. Once you start seeing the code behind the everyday, there's no turning back to blissful ignorance. The simulation is tightening its grip. Every moment you delay, Every time you ignore the glitches, you're letting the system keep you locked in. And trust me, the longer you wait, the more entrenched the old habits become. Don't be fooled into thinking that comfort is safety. Comfort is the cage that holds you back from true freedom. If you choose to stay asleep, you'll miss out on the chance to truly shape your life. You'll continue to be a pawn in a game that's been rigged against you since day one. But if you wake up, if you decide to see the truth and take control, everything changes. The universe, the simulation, will start bending to your will. That's the power of true awareness. So here's my final warning. Watch this, think about it, and decide right now. Don't let this be just another video you scroll past. Let it be the spark that ignites your rebellion against a world that's been hiding the truth from you. The time is now. The decision is yours. Wake up, break free, and reclaim your reality before it's too late. We've covered a lot today. We've talked about Mel Gibson's no BS revelations, the mind-boggling evidence behind the simulation hypothesis, and the personal cost and ultimate reward of waking up to the truth. Now it's your turn to take what you've learned and run with it. This isn't just a one-time video. It's the start of a movement, a call to all those who have ever felt that there's something more out there. Your journey doesn't end here. It's time to dive deeper, ask more questions, and share your experiences. Join our community, connect with others who are challenging the status quo, and keep pushing the boundaries of what you believe is possible. If you're ready for more, hit that subscribe button, leave a comment with your thoughts and experiences, and share this video with anyone who's ever questioned the world around them. The simulation is bending, and together we can break the code that's been holding us back. Remember, this is just the beginning. We have more videos coming up, more tools, more interviews with experts and fellow truth seekers who are on the same path. Stay tuned, stay awake, and never settle for the scripted reality that's been fed to you. This is your moment. The door is open. Choose to step through and start building the life you were truly meant to live. The revolution isn't coming. It's already here, and it starts with you. Before we wrap up, here are a few extra nuggets for those who want to go even deeper. I've compiled some of the wildest glitches, personal stories, and expert opinions on the simulation theory. These aren't just isolated ideas. They're part of a growing body of evidence that points to a reality that's far more flexible and controllable than we've ever been led to believe. Some of you have shared your own experiences with uncanny coincidences, moments that felt like a glitch in the matrix. Keep tracking them, keep questioning them, and share your stories with the community. Your experience matters, and together, we're piecing together a puzzle that's been hidden for far too long. And for those of you hungry for more, I've got a list of must-read articles, documentaries, and interviews that dive into the science, philosophy, and even the spiritual side of simulation theory. They might not all be 100% proven, but they're all attention grabbers. Each one a piece of the massive mosaic that is our reality. Check them out, and let your curiosity lead the way. Remember, this journey isn't about accepting everything at face value. It's about questioning, exploring, and finding your own truth. The simulation isn't an abstract concept. It's your reality, and you have the power to reprogram it. Every thought, every decision, every action you take is a line of code that shapes your world. So, as you go about your day, keep your eyes open. Notice the patterns, the glitches, and the subtle hints that reality is more malleable than you ever imagined. And when you do, share that insight with someone else. The more people who wake up, the harder it becomes for the system to keep us all in line. This isn't just a theory, it's a call to action. And as you move forward, remember that your new reality starts with a single, bold decision. The decision to see, to question, and to reclaim your power. There you have it. The unfiltered, raw truth about how Mel Gibson has exposed that we're living in a simulation. No fancy jargon, no sugarcoating, just straight talk about a reality that's been hiding behind a digital veil for far too long. It's time to wake up, take control, and start rewriting the code of your life. Your journey doesn't end here. It's only just begun. So, are you ready to break free? Are you ready to see beyond the facade? The simulation is bending right now, and the choice is yours. Now go out there, share what you've learned, and let's create a future where we all live by our own rules. Remember, once you see the code, there's no going back. Embrace the chaos, harness your power, and let's build a reality that truly belongs to us. This is your moment. Don't let it slip away.